Welcome back, everyone. In this episode, we're going to be talking about the body cam video that's just been released on the terrorist incident that happened on New Year's Day 2025. This is the Shots Fired podcast. I'm Mark Rutledge, and this is Kyle Schoberg.
All right, so we're going to jump into the body cam footage that has just been released by the New Orleans Police Department of the January 1, 2025 terrorist attack, where officers got into a shootout with the suspect. 2 officers were shot and wounded, and this whole thing has just been a tragic event. It's been covered all over the news. This is going to piggyback off our first video where we discussed the incident the day of the attack. So a lot more information has come out, more things have unfolded. We just have a lot more information. So we're going to watch this body cam footage. It's short, but there's a lot to learn from it. So let's dive into it, come back, and we'll give it to you from our perspective, from the law enforcement side of things. But first, Mark, you have an announcement.
All right, I want to let everybody know I've partnered with Forcible Entry, and we've created a patrol-based breacher class. I want you to go to forcibleentry.com/LE breacher training and sign up for our class. It's in Sacramento region. We are offering 4 different classes, April 26th and 27th and May 30th and 31st. This is a very unique opportunity. This class is being co-taught by firefighters and myself and my old partner from the SWAT team. We are going to be teaching you how to manage tactics, while the fire department is going to teach you how to actually use a Halligan and a ram and properly breach all kinds of different doors. Go to forcibleentry.com/LE breacher training and sign up for this unique opportunity.
All right, so the body cam footage is very short. It's what they've released so far. There's obviously going to be multiple probably camera angles and everything else released from the other officers that were there. But this is what they've given us so far. And albeit it's short, there's actually a lot to learn from this. And I want to circle back real quick about this whole incident and kind of soaking it all in and learning more details about everything that happened. And one thing that stands out to me is that someone pointed out to me was that this truck that he was driving was an electric truck. And so I know it shows him going around the barricade in a police vehicle to, go down Bourbon Street and take out all those people, which he did at a very high rate of speed. And if you're in an electric vehicle, you're not hearing anything. You're not hearing an engine rev, roar, like none of that. So I can understand why everyone got caught off guard on this, because it's basically a silent missile coming down the road. And for these group of officers that were standing on the corner who responded to the crash of him, he ran into that forklift, which thank God that thing was there. I think that thing saved a ton of lives. They're responding to this crash, and it's just hard not to think that when they arrived at the vehicle, you can see in the body cam footage that a couple of the officers have their guns drawn. Someone has handcuffs in their hands. They're ordering this guy to get out of the car. I would like to assume that they probably saw that he was wearing some type of body armor, and clearly they now know that several people have been run over. I just don't know that you would automatically assume the worst when you saw that. I would think that they probably thought this guy was DUI, he was drunk, and are trying to get him out of the vehicle when he actually opens fires on the officers from behind the airbags that have been deployed and striking to the officers. And so we can talk about what happens after that, but that's kind of my frame of mind. Like when I watch this, trying to wrap my head, if I was there, what would I be thinking and like what would I be doing?
I think you've nailed quite a bit when you talk about like the electric vehicle part, because you're not going to hear anything, and it doesn't matter how fast it's going. You're not hearing any noises like a normal vehicle. And these are crowded streets with people having a good time. It's going to be hard to hear anything anyways, let alone a silent vehicle. And my thought would be most of those cops probably didn't even see it. They may have heard the actual collision with the forklift, and that's probably what their focus went to. Or other officers that saw the vehicle were radioing and they were listening. And I think that brings up like the two different types of cops. There's the cops that hope that this incident is happening someplace else and they don't have to deal with that or manage that or respond to it. And then you're getting the other cops that want to find the vehicle, hope it happens there so they can be the ones to actually stop that. And in this case, those cops that were right there all ran towards that vehicle.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about, so they get to the vehicle, shots are fired, and, unfortunately you see some of these officers, they turn, and a couple of them turn their backs. They're running away. And look, we've been in gunfights. Like, it's extremely scary. And your natural reaction is to want to distance yourself from that and run away. I think when you see some of these officers falling down, I think one of them actually drops his firearm. One of them certainly drops their handcuffs on the ground, which, whatever. Forget the handcuffs. I think it just goes to show the importance of, like, are you really prepared to manage something like that if it happens? I mean, you're going from they're already amped up because of what just happened, but really when the shots are fired, I think you're really going from like 0 to 1,000 in a matter of less than a second that happens. And those are perfect training opportunities to put yourself in a position where some type of stress or stimulus happens, and you have to be able to keep focus on target, because if you have someone shooting at you, the last thing you're going to want to do is turn your back to that. And, luckily some other officers engaged the guy, but if they didn't and he gets out and your back is to him and now you've fallen on the ground. So I think it's important that while you're at the range conducting some type of training like this, where you have to laterally move while putting rounds on target and maintaining your footwork.
The footwork is really important, but I think it starts with the mindset. And these officers probably just witnessed multiple people just get run over and then heard and saw a massive collision with that truck and that forklift, and they're running up to it. And I've been on scene of car accidents right when it happened, and I've witnessed them and been on scene, and I know you have. And to pull up and to get out and run up to a car that's been in a major collision that has the airbag deployed, it's pretty scary to be around that car. One, you're wondering if the person in the car is okay and if there's anybody else, but also it's scary to be around that car. You don't know if it's going to catch on fire, if something's going to explode. The airbags are out. There's like dust and particles flying in the air. There could be fluid leaking out.
People are screaming.
Yes. The lights, it's dark, so there's like lights flickering and flashing just from the normal evening and cameras and cell phones. So I kind of see in this situation, your mindset, mine would probably be, oh my gosh, there's a car accident. Maybe it's a medical emergency or a DU driver. Got to get up to that car and make sure that they're not trying to continue driving, because oftentimes they do. And then you're immediately met with gunfire. And watching the body camera, he's shooting from under there. They never saw the gun. So you're hearing gunshots and being loud outside. And the movies always make it seem like gunshots are very distinct. But depending on the type of gun and the environment you're in, sometimes it's kind of hard to distinguish what the actual sound is. And I wonder if they thought maybe something was wrong with the car or the truck. Like, there's all kinds of things going through my mind if I put myself in that perspective. But then to be met with the actual gunfire and then have someone shot and then have to think quickly, that's what you're talking about, the footwork, the movement, the processing,
and
the training.
Right, yeah, like returning fire.
Yeah. And what are you shooting? Because you can't just blindly shoot at somebody or a direction hoping that's what you're shooting at.
Yeah, especially with all those people out there.
Yeah.
I mean, that are out in downtown. And so, yeah,
it's being disciplined in shooting and actually recognizing the threat and engaging that threat.
Yeah. So I had somebody ask me why the cops would run up to the truck like that. And it's easy to say that now because we know now who this guy is and what his intentions were. But in the moment, they didn't know that. And so they're just running up to what they probably think is just a collision or a drunk driver, that cause a horrific crash. And so to put that in perspective for people that, clearly know the end story of this guy, like, it's easy to say that, but in the moment, I think people need to realize, like, that's not what is going through their mind.
And you only have like two of those officers that had eyes on the driver and probably recognized the body armor, the unique stuff that person was wearing that's kind of odd in the first place. And then those additional officers that are behind the officers that can't see the driver to hear gunshots, and those officers start to move quickly. Like, you have to process what's happening And then you have officers that are between you and the suspect. So I think, again, it goes back to the importance of training and trying to work lateral, forward, and backwards quick movements at the range. And you don't have to do it with your gun out. You can practice it with your holding your hand. Like, how do I move quickly? How do I get out of the way? And sometimes if I'm going to 100% retreat, nothing wrong with that. But you have to do it with the capabilities of trying to stay on your feet.
Yeah, for sure. And then put effective rounds down range where they need to go on the intended target, because like we said a second ago, I mean, there's a lot of people down there and you can't just blindly start shooting into a crowd of people. So overall, I mean, gosh, that's a pretty short body cam clip.
Yeah, well, I want to add another thing to that, because it's just like more things start, the more we talk about these incidents, the smarter we get, the more we could train for the next ones. But also got to recognize that it's New Year's. Fireworks are going off. So like, is there fireworks in the truck? Is someone else shooting? Like there's just so much to process in this.
Yeah. It's a 2025 obviously did not start out, a good year. We had the Las Vegas incident with the former or current Green Beret and the Cybertruck. I mean, there's all sorts of things swirling around about that, but it makes me really think in law enforcement. I follow a bunch of military guys on, social media, Instagram and stuff. And everyone talks about like being overseas and fighting terrorists overseas and stuff. And it's like, if that stuff is here now in our backyard, as law enforcement, how much more of this are we going to be faced with? And then how are we going to respond to that in dealing with these types of events? And so I think that's a real thing to think about. And as these happen more and more, which they are, and I think you need to just have that conversation of, you're going to be responding more to these events, and how are you going to respond? And I think it's just not something that we've ever been trained in law enforcement. This is like a whole new thing that's going on. And I think they need to start adapting this into training.
Well, I think the first thing comes to mind when you bring up potential terrorist attacks of involving vehicles is, I mean, it's hard to say, but maybe trying to keep your distance. If the vehicle is no longer mobile, trying to keep your distance, keep eyes on that, and maybe expect an additional something that's going to happen. Maybe there's explosives in the truck. Maybe it's a distraction. Maybe there's something going on behind you. Like, I'd almost want to start thinking about keeping my distance, trying to keep eyes on it, having some form of cover, looking at the driver, trying to process what's happening, because we know it's a natural response for motivated officers to want to rush up to a scene, especially a vehicle accident, to help the occupants. And in this case, thankfully, additional bombs did not go off, or any bombs didn't go off, because that would have caused even more casualties.
Yeah. All really good things to think about. And I think we're just entering a new era in law enforcement. And with these types of people now in our country, I think it's just going to happen more. And I think this needs to be on the forefront of people's mind, and especially being any type of first responder capacity, but more so as a cop. If you're going to be first on scene, this stuff, it needs to be talked about, and it needs to be implemented into training programs.
Yeah. So
that's all I have to say about it. It's short. I still think there's a lot of value to watching these short body cam clips. There's always something to learn. And so I guess that's what we make this about. And I learned a lot from it, and I like talking about these things, and I'm going to take this stuff back to my own job and the guys that I work with. And I haven't practiced that in a long time, right? Like lateral type movement, running, shooting. And these are all things that I think just sharpens my knowledge and capabilities.
Yeah. And I think anybody that's at a range should really be incorporating continuous movements. Like, we watch hundreds of body cams, and most shootings, these officers are moving, but at a range, it's so stagnant. And then when you're doing your annual qualifications, people are so concerned about passing that they're standing and they're taking perfect sighted shots. And the reality is that's only going to happen in felony stop or other situations where you have time to take a sighted shot and you're holding on somebody. But we know most shootings happen from the holster and immediately reacting.
Yeah, and on the move. Which begs the question, if you're a range person or if you've got a lot of knowledge in this area, drop a comment and let everybody know, what are you training? What are some drills that people can run at a training range facility? Let us know. And for the civilian side of it, let civilians know how they can train to protect themselves from these types of attacks. So let us know, drop them in the comments, and I guess we will catch you guys on the next video.
Stay safe and be smart.